So, what is a saltwater aquarium cleanup crew? What do they do? And how many do you need? And when should you add one? Let's talk about it. Hey, I'm Logan from Reef Rookies, where I help you demystify saltwater aquaria. And when you're talking about cleanup crew, it's basically all of those organisms that you're going to be adding to the tank that are going to help keep the rocks and the sand and the tank as a whole clean. There used to be an old rule back in the day when I got started in reef keeping where they would say that you would keep one member of your cleanup crew per gallon of water volume, which is kind of crazy because I've got a 275 total volume gallon tank here, which means that I would have 275 members of my cleanup crew? That doesn't sound right. And the fact of the matter is, it's not. In my 275 here, it's a 225 on the top and a 75-gallon sump down below, I only have about a dozen members of a cleanup crew. Now, before you go calling me out, let me explain why. When I set up this tank, I used live rock from another tank that was very, very dirty. And in short, what happened is that live rock sat outside for a really long time before I got it, and then I got it, and there was a lot of organics deep within the inside of that rock, which when I got my tank set up, it created a nutrient spike that was incredibly high that stayed up there for like 8 months. And then one day, the microbiome caught up with the nutrients, used them all up, and the tank crashed to an ultra low nutrient situation. And since then, I've had trouble keeping the nutrients up in this tank because there's such a big volume of beneficial bacteria in the tank. They're using up the available nutrients as soon as they become available. I don't have a lot of things in this tank that are growing that need to be cleaned up, per se. And the reason that I'm telling you this is because your tank is going to be different than mine, and both of our tanks are going to be different from the next person and the next and the next and the next. Oh, by the way, my bubble tip anemone, I think it's finally splitting into either 3 or maybe 4 smaller anemones after 18 months of being in my tank. Back on topic. So as far as your cleanup crew is concerned, it's pretty much going to consist of some hermit crabs and some snails, maybe like a brittle starfish or something like that, a few shrimp, and all of these possibly in different species. You could have blue leg hermits, red leg hermits. Seraph snails kind of stay on the rocks. Turbo snails generally kind of stay on the rocks, but they'll go to the glass as well. Trocus snails like to just go everywhere. Necarious snails dig down underneath the sand, and they have a little periscope that sticks up so that they can breathe if they hit an ammonia pocket or something like that. So you can see that the biodiversity of the cleanup crew is important as well. Now, what your tank specifically is going to need depends completely on your tank. The main thing that I would caution people against doing is putting too much cleanup crew in their tank too fast at the beginning. You definitely don't have to put any cleanup crew at all in your tank during the nitrogen cycle, and in fact, doing so would be ill-advised and probably create an unalive situation for a lot of those animals. Once the nitrogen cycle is complete and you get into the ugly phase stage of the aquarium, you can begin adding a few members of your cleanup crew. But let's just take a 40-gallon tank, for example. If you set up a 40-gallon tank and you got that thing into the ugly phase and everything, you're not going to want to add 40-plus members into your cleanup crew, unless they're really tiny. It is possible for people to order blue and red leg hermit crabs and stuff where they are only 1/4 of an inch long. And in that case, sure, you might want to get 15 or 20 of those. But keep in mind that they are going to grow. And as they grow, they're going to outcompete the available nutrients in the tank if you use too many, and they're going to start to die off. If you take a look at this video of my rocks right now, you can see that my hermit crab, he's about 1 inch in size. The rocks behind him are basically very, very clean. Now in my 225 main display, I only have about half a dozen blue leg hermits. I have 2 turbo snails, 1 big top hat trocus snail, and I have about 5 Australia snails and a cleaner shrimp. That's the extent of my cleanup crew. But the reason that it's so small is because of that nutrient system that I was telling you about earlier. My tank runs with the phosphate at about 0.01 and about 2 on the nitrates. I don't have a lot of available nutrients in the tank to grow algae and things like this, so I don't have a lot of stuff in the tank for a big cleanup crew to make a job of it. With the right-sized cleanup crew, there's always something growing in the tank for that cleanup crew to clean up. And if you have too many of those animals, they're going to use up everything and then kaput. And if all of those animals go kaput at relatively the same time, it could lead you to a nutrient imbalance, which could lead you to cyanobacteria or possibly even dinoflagellates. So check these videos out if you're experiencing that. But remember, with your cleanup crew, start low and go slow, which pretty much applies to everything having a reef tank. I mean, really, that's a good idea. Just start low, go slow. You know what I mean?